beacon of hope or a blinding distraction? In the world of crypto, it's easy to be charmed by the shimmer and the shine of an altcoin. But when have you ever traversed the dark? If it is true financial freedom you're chasing, how do you know you've been led to the real pot of cash rather than an illusion? Can you tell the dream from the nightmare? Or are you still stuck in one? Together, let's uncover the layers of QNT, beyond the hype, beyond the FOMO, and beyond the illusion.
Let me get this straight. You're someone who is stuck between this illusion world where you're not too sure exactly what Quant is, how it works, what's happening beneath the surface, and you've come here to find out, is Quant Network really a 50x gaining altcoin, or is it a scam? And surprisingly, I've actually heard both sides of the story, and surprisingly, they actually both are very warranted, believe it or not. Now, Quant is admittedly one of my highest holdings in cryptocurrency. That's for a very good reason I'm going to outline very quickly in this video. I actually had last week a video I posted where I spoke about some of the recent Quant news. I will touch briefly on that. I will most definitely touch on the bullish side today, but I'm also going to shed light on the side where people do think it is a scam, and I'll save that for last, of course. So to find out whether it is, of course, an illusion or if it's the real pot of cash, we first have to have a look into some of the really bullish factors that make Quant, of course. Now, if you have a look at the chart here, currently today it's about $87. Now that's not too bad if you ask me, because I've always said anything under like $95 is a good time to buy Quant. Of course, is it justified? Well, we'll have a look in a second. Now I am making this video basically a week earlier than what you're probably viewing this at, so it could most definitely be a lot cheaper or a lot more expensive in a week's time. We will see as time progresses. So one of the first things I want to bring out, and this is what people don't talk about, I see time and time again, people in crypto, they never, ever talk about the writing on the friggin' wall. What do they talk about? They talk about pumpamental factors, when's the next token unlock happening, and all the stuff that crypto is unfortunately like bad for, right? Like it's really stupid stuff. And Quant is literally building like a Microsoft level, if not more, type service right in front of us, and you're literally crazy. I hear time and time again, I'm going to call out by name an influencer here, Jerry Banfield. I've got nothing against Jerry. I think it's quite funny, to be honest with you. Some of his videos just crack me up. But he says that Quant's a bad project because it's an ERC20 token. I know I'm getting into the bad stuff later on, but I wanted to point out that Quant is not just an ERC20 token. If we have a look at this connection, for example, Quant is among the partners of a recently approved working group developing a new internet protocol. Yes, you heard that right, a new internet protocol. You might think to yourself, well, how many times have we heard what new project is doing a new internet protocol? Really is going to actually be adopted? Well, let me continue. Which will make the transfer of digital assets more secure and the DLT networks more interoperable. This is coming with CBDCs. This makes sense. Let me move on. Quant put forward a charter that has led, so they put forward something, the Internet Engineering Task Force, or the IETF, to form the Secure Asset Transfer Protocol SATP working group. This will be the protocol that will be implemented. Quant, of course, pushed for this to happen. Now, if you don't know who the IETF is, they are the people who create the frameworks that is adopted predominantly, doesn't mean it will be, by the internet, right? They put forward these proposals for upgrades to the actual internet. Yes, the internet we use. This is the biggest of the big. Of course, the internet is decentralized, so of course it's not just the be-all and end-all, but that's some pretty big stuff, as big as you can get. The protocol aims to enable the transfer of assets across DLT networks in a secure manner. What is Quant? Quant is the spider in the web connecting all DLT networks together. Permissionless, or any type of form of that you'd like to say. Everything. Legacy, which means very, very old or very new systems, it all. Also, when was the SATP, this exact protocol, mentioned recently? By the Bank of International Settlements. We'll touch more on them in a second. They are the central bank to all central banks. They facilitate the transfer of large assets, be it gold, be it large transfers, be it communication between hostile countries or the middleman. They facilitate any central bank and a lot of the communication that happens between them, right? So the Bank of Korea plans to create a unified ledger for tokenized asset settlement. Shout out to San on Twitter. He is a Quant specialist. He actually notified me of this news. And he said in this report, as he outlines here, specifically the asset transfer mechanism predominantly relies on a common smart contract known as the bridge. As we know in crypto, you have to have smart contracts to form the bridge. That's how they work, to transfer assets across different networks. A noteworthy example of the asset transfer mechanism is the SATP standard, which has been actively researched and developed by the Internet Engineering Task Force, founded by Quant. The standard is particularly well suited for permission ledgers. Furthermore, one of the features is to have a gateway application through which multiple distinct distributed ledgers are interconnected. Specific architectures and use case have already been demonstrated in a report I'm going to show you in a second, meaning they know it works. They know Quant works. This is the biggest entity in the finance space approving what Quant is doing. If you're not convinced yet, let me continue here. Down here, they also bring up, very importantly, Cosmos and Polkadot, because fundamentally they are networks that are designed to be interconnecting many other networks together, especially with Polkadot's new upgrade. It's most definitely now a real competitor to Cosmos. And they say it's not good, basically down here. Why? Because they are really good at connecting permissionless networks, meaning decentralized networks. The hard thing is connecting permission networks, meaning private networks, like the back end of ABC Company, the back end of BlackRock, the back end of Vanguard, the back end of your favorite bank. They all use blockchain technology, but in a permissioned manner, meaning it's closed off. The hard part is connecting these closed off networks, which SATP, otherwise known as Quant's infrastructure, does really well. I mentioned the report before from the BIS. Guess what? Quant has worked with the BIS again, notably in a report mentioned, I think back in June, where they actually worked with Amazon, connecting the Bank of Canada to the Bank of England, performing transfers through there, Barclays Bank, MasterCard, and so on. This is in black and white, the vendor team, as you can see, Quant and one of Quant's partners, UST. This was a successful collaboration. What happened approximately 2 weeks later? Quant launched to the public its Overledger system. Why? Well, I think it's because this works, Quant knows this works, Quant's been given the green light by the very people who need Quant to be out there in the public. People that start using Quant or the businesses that begin to onboard will then be adopted because, well, I think CBDCs are coming, right? Essentially. So we move on. Quant's partner, LACChain, right? LACChain is a global alliance led by the IDB Lab, the Innovation Laboratory for the Inter-American Development Bank, or IDB Group, right? So the IDB Group is a big player in the Latin America area, right? So the Inter-American Development Bank, these guys founded LACChain. It's a consortium network, just like other big names. Hyperledger Fabric, Quarter, Quorum. It's the same, but for Latin America. And what they're fundamentally doing here is what Gilbert mentions over here. Now, you can't actually listen to it because I'm on my laptop, but essentially Gilbert, and shout out to Mac for that horrible interface. But Gilbert mentions in this particular clip, and I might leave it in the description down below, that they are working on building, as crypto nerd quotes on here, the Latin American dollar with LACChain. LACChain fundamentally is the infrastructure connecting Latin America together. They are working with Quant, and as Gilbert mentions in here, they connected with Quant to connect these 13 or 14 countries in the Latin American Caribbean regions to form $1. They all suffer from hyperinflation to some degree. They want to get off the US dollar, and this is one of the ways. This stuff doesn't happen overnight. This stuff takes years in the making. Hence, Gilbert mentioned on Telegram way back here, I think it was back in like 2021, someone asked, if you end up in an arrangement with a centralized bank, would we know? And he said, the central bank will announce what we're doing with them. Guess what? Many years later, 2.5 years later, the BIS mentioned that they are working with Quant. Gilbert knew what they were doing back then. I could be here all day talking about the small connections between, Quant and even Citigroup, which I did a live stream on recently, and how Citigroup and Quant are most definitely somehow connected. This can go on forever and ever, but we're here to find the good and the bad. Let me now continue quickly with some more recent news. 10th of October, so as of a few days ago, as of recording this video, Quant launched a central bank grade key management solution for blockchain transactions. This is a whole bunch of jargon you're probably not going to understand. It's mostly built around essentially getting all the existing systems, these permission systems, right? These very closed off systems, including, again, financial institutions, right? So banks as well, and all their requirements in terms of what they need for a transfer, okay, between the internal sort of infrastructure. And then what Quant's saying is, hey, we can connect you guys permission to permission, which was mentioned before in that BIS report with the Bank of Korea. We can connect you guys and make that asset transfer extremely secure. So much secure that this becomes a viable option. And that's a very hard thing to do, whether you know it or not. And again, Gilbert mentions it in this report over here. Now, as he mentions, Authorized, which is the protocol, or at least this wing of Quant, has recently been stress tested and proven to work in Project Roslyn, which was the project with the BIS, Bank of England, and Amazon, MasterCard, Berkeley, so on and so forth. A flagship central bank digital currency experiment led by the Bank of England and Bank of International Settlements, as I said, with banks, institutions, and industry participants. We're now making the technology more widely available. I mean, I don't know what else you need to really hear about this. Let me quickly finish up by saying that Gilbert is someone who digs right into exactly this, which is the secure transfer between different permission networks, right? Because he has had so much experience in the security aspect of many, many different jobs, and again, stacked positions. The CIO, right? So the Chief Information Officer, or the Chief Information Security Officer as well here for the New South Wales Health Department, okay? He's been over here with BP, right? Digital security. He's been at HSBC, Her Majesty's Treasury, right? Right up at the CSO and Deputy CTO. I mean, what else do you really need to know? He also formed one of the ISO standards, right? Which is a standard essentially that most of the world adopts. Whatever they come out with, it's like the standard that really is pushed to be adopted, bastardized version of such. So suffice to say, Gilbert is stacked, and so is Quant, and it's a matter of time before the price shoots up, in my opinion. How much so? Well, my price prediction over here, I'm estimating Quant's going to shoot up from about $87, which is when this report was done, to about $4,000, based on actual data. Which you won't find elsewhere. Okay, so again, my actual prediction for Quant's anywhere between $1,500 right up to $4,000. It does depend, and as the bull market continues and progresses, this will narrow and narrow and narrow. But until then, we have to be quite vague with it and see how Quant performs. But I definitely do think, fundamentally speaking, with what we've just discovered then, flawless. And so I hear you, Kyron, this is great, but what if it's an illusion? What if it all is a fugazi, fairy dust? Well, my answer to you is very simple. A lot of people are fudding Quant Network with the team is selling the tokens. Guys, XRP sells their tokens. Every other network that isn't a non-for-profit at some stage will sell their tokens. Why do you think there's an open distribution and an open investing that we can obviously go in and have a look at? So it is your fault if you get dumped on. We can go in there and say, hey, look, there's a unlock happening at this point, or like XRP, they escrow 1 billion tokens every single month. It's to fund the team. You think the team are working for free? They can't issue new shares for the team. They can't buy back their tokens for the team, because to do that, they have to have the money in the first place, right? So they have to fund their team with real money. Not just their team, partners, connections. They have to obviously spend money to make money. So for those out there screaming, oh my God, Quant's dumping on the community, guys, it is 100% required. If they don't do that, we have no Quant, right? And so I want to touch really on the whole, case about Jerry Banfield before. Again, not any hate on Jerry whatsoever. I find him quite entertaining. But he mentions it's an ERC20 token. It is a settlement layer on Ethereum. Ethereum now, as you should all know, is moving away from being a sole network. Layer 2s are popping up to increase scalability, to be used, not just for scalability rather, but to actually be used to process transactions and to have their own ecosystem using Ethereum for roll-ups, bundling a whole bunch of transactions together and settling them on Ethereum. Why? Ethereum's got lots of nodes, highly secure, therefore it means that is a verifiable, intangible evidence that this transaction has gone through and everyone can see it on the blockchain. That's what it's for. That's a settlement layer, okay? And so Quant uses Ethereum for this exact reason. It's been using it since Genesis. It uses its ERC20 QNT token. It has its own network, Overledger, processes these transactions, instant settlement. It's a very centralized network for a reason. That's why it can be so fast and can be so widely adopted. But then says, hey guys, if you want to see your transactions actually on the blockchain secured, because we can fudge the details. If it was Quant by itself, they could say, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to actually take all this information and we're going to write down any sort of information. And if your transaction was $1,000, well, we're going to cut it in half and take the profit. No, they can't do that, right? So they have to have a public settlement layer. It's the power of blockchain. It's the power of crypto. And so that's what they've done in this case over here. And it makes total sense. Quant is not an ERC20 token. I'm sick of hearing it. I'm really getting tired of people saying that. I mean, it's better for me. I get to buy the token for cheaper prices, but it's not good for the people. I want you guys to actually believe it or not. An influencer saying he wants the best for people, I want the best for you, okay? Here's the real kick in the nuts, right? Here's the real bad part of Quant, is that, and I've brought this up in a whole different video. I got a lot of flack for it, but I think it's still a very valid point. I was mentioned this very concerning factor of Quant that touches on what I just said. And long story short, it's that Quant itself is just an ERC20 token. The fact of the matter is, it is now partnered with the likes of the BIS. It's partnered with literally more companies than we would know. It's a white label service, meaning that they don't have to say that they're working with Quant. They can actually say, hey, this technology is ours. In reality, it's Quant's, but they've paid to say that, right? Well, they could just flip their network into a complete private instance. Now, of course, there is no incentive to do that, because if the incentive was to screw people over, well, they still could do it, of course, but then they lose their credibility because they've screwed people over. And also, there's no actual way that they could verify that the transactions happened and that they won't be reversed, for example, right? And so that was one of the concerns I brought up. I still think it is somewhat a valid concern, but again, based on those two factors I just mentioned to you, I think it is a lot less likely to happen than I once perceived. I've given it some more thought, and I do think that the fact of the matter is, just like Hedera H-bar, where the governing council could, theoretically speaking, in a unanimous decision, mint more tokens, like most networks can. If Quant did that, if they removed their ERC20 tokens, shut it down, and did their own network, well, it's pretty much going to damage their reputation and thus kill the company, definitely kill the investors, and I believe, it's going to probably, well, they won't have a token at that point, so they won't have a market, but I believe it will kill a lot of the sort of respect and influence it's been gaining so far. So with that said, guys, Quant's 50x gainer. Quant is, as I showed over here, I mean, look, the price prediction says one thing. What actually might happen is a different thing. Either way, it will blow your socks off. It's just over $1 billion market cap right now. And considering the global market cap will go anywhere between 3 to 10 trillion, I think we are in for a large price appreciation for Quant Network. With that said, drop a like down below if you made it this far, because you're a legend, and I look forward to talking to you all soon. Take good care, guys. Bye.